Sometimes we cry over what God had to wrestle out of our hands. We don't always recognize it in the moment, but there are times when what we're begging God to restore is the very thing He removed to protect us. And yet we keep walking back. We keep knocking on doors that were slammed shut, not by rejection, but by divine redirection. See, we get it twisted, thinking that every loss is a punishment, every goodbye is a tragedy. But some exits are blessings, some rejections are resurrections of your peace. Peace is expensive. It's not something you can buy at the corner store of comfort. It costs you something. And when God gives you peace, real peace, don't you dare trade it for temporary pleasure, for familiar chaos, or for people who were only meant to be chapters, not the entire book. You know what happens when you keep reopening doors God closed. You start living in cycles instead of moving in seasons. Cycles are dangerous. They drain you. They delay your destiny. God wants you to evolve, not revolve. See, some of us have spiritual amnesia. We forget how dark it got. We forget how much it hurt. We forget the prayers we cried at 3 a.m., the ones where we begged for a way out. But as soon as we feel a little lonely, as soon as the phone gets quiet, or the bed feels cold, we start scrolling through memories instead of scriptures. We go looking for comfort in the arms of confusion. We go looking for love in places that only ever gave us pain. Let me tell you something. It wasn't a mistake that door closed. It wasn't a coincidence they walked away. It wasn't bad timing. It was divine protection. God saw what you couldn't. He heard the conversations when you weren't in the room. He saw the intentions behind the smiles. He knew the weight it was costing your soul to carry that relationship, that friendship, that job, that environment. And because He loves you, He removed it. Now, the enemy's strategy, it's subtle. He won't always come to steal your peace with something loud. Sometimes he'll use nostalgia. He'll dress up dysfunction in memories and whisper, "It wasn't that bad." But remember this, just because something feels familiar doesn't mean it's good for you. Comfort can be a trap. It can blind you to the very thing that's breaking you. When God closes a door, it's not just about where you've been. It's about where He's taking you, and where you're going, not everything can follow. Some people, some patterns, some mindsets, they don't fit your next level. They were assigned to your past, not your promise. You're praying for elevation, but clinging to anchors. You're asking for clarity while entertaining confusion. You can't expect new blessings while dancing with old burdens. Sometimes the blessing is not in what God adds to your life, but in what He subtracts. We've got to mature to a place where we don't need closure to move forward. Because let's be honest, closure is often a trap too. What we really want is another opportunity to reopen that door, to peek back in, to justify our attachment. But closure doesn't always come with an explanation. Sometimes peace means accepting what you don't understand, trusting that if God took it, He's got better. If He removed it, it wasn't necessary. If He said no, it's because there's a greater yes ahead. The enemy would love for you to live in regret, to sit in the ruins of what could have been, but regret is a liar. It will convince you to reattach to things that cost you your sanity, your joy, your time. Listen to me. Don't let loneliness make you settle for less than what you prayed for. Don't let fear trick you into running back to the very thing that broke you. You're not the same person you were when that door was open. You've grown, you've healed, you've survived, you've seen too much, you've overcome too much, and now that God has brought you out, don't sabotage your future by clinging to your past. There's a reason the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror. What's ahead of you is greater than what's behind you, but you can't drive forward if you keep looking back. You can't receive what's next while holding on to what was. You've got to let it go, not because it didn't mean something, not because it didn't hurt, but because your peace is worth more than your comfort. Peace isn't passive, it's a weapon. It guards your heart. It protects your mind, and when God gives you peace, that's not just relief, it's alignment. It means you're in step with His will. Don't disrupt that by trying to reopen what God has already resolved. Some doors weren't closed gently. They were slammed, and that was intentional. Because God knew if it was quiet, you'd go back. So He made it loud. He made it clear. He made it undeniable. Don't make Him repeat Himself. And let me say this. Your healing doesn't require their apology. Your progress doesn't need their permission. You don't need their validation to move on. Sometimes you just need to remind yourself of what you already know. That God doesn't close doors to punish you. He closes them to protect the promise. Stop negotiating with your past. Stop debating with your doubt. Stop entertaining what God evicted. You have the authority to close doors too. You have the power to block access to your peace. And sometimes you have to protect your purpose with silence, distance, and obedience. Not every door deserves a second knock. Not every person deserves a second chance. Some bridges were meant to be burned. Some chapters must remain closed, because every time you go back, you delay what's next. Every time you settle, you shrink. Every time you compromise, you corrupt your calling. You've got to believe that what's in front of you is greater, even if you can't see it yet, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's quiet. Trust that God doesn't take without the intent to give. He doesn't break without the plan to build. He doesn't close doors without opening new ones. But you'll never know what's on the other side if you keep running back to what was. You're not who you used to be. You prayed for transformation. You asked for growth. You cried out for peace. So don't curse the process that delivered it. Don't resent the pruning. Don't fear the separation. Elevation requires isolation. And sometimes that means walking away from everything that once made you feel secure, but secretly kept you stuck. There's a cost to freedom. There's a price for peace, but it's worth it. Because on the other side of obedience is overflow. On the other side of trust is transformation. On the other side of surrender is a version of you that's unrecognizable to the past. And you owe it to yourself to meet that version. So when God says no more, believe Him. When He closes the door, don't put your foot in the way. When He removes someone, don't chase after them. When He dries up a place, don't keep digging. Walk away with your dignity. Move forward with your faith. And protect your peace like it's your most prized possession. Because it is. Some doors need to stay closed. Some pasts need to stay buried. Some lessons need to remain learned. Don't sabotage your next breakthrough by revisiting old bondage. Don't forfeit your favor for familiarity. Don't reopen what God has already redeemed you from. Your future is too bright. Your purpose is too important. Your peace is too precious. Keep walking. Keep growing. Keep trusting. Don't go back. Sometimes we confuse comfort with calling. Just because something feels easy doesn't mean it's meant for you. Just because it once fit doesn't mean it still belongs. You ever try wearing an old jacket that used to be your favorite, and suddenly it just feels tight in all the wrong places? That's what happens when you try to force yourself back into seasons God already delivered you from. You've outgrown that spiritually, emotionally, mentally. It doesn't fit you anymore, and the discomfort is confirmation. God will let you be uncomfortable long enough for you to realize you're no longer supposed to be there. That job that once gave you purpose now drains you. That relationship that once felt like destiny now feels like a distraction. That friend who once supported you now silently resents you. You can't ignore the shift. The energy changes before the situation does. And if you're paying attention, God gives you clues before He closes doors. But here's the problem. We want peace, but we also want control. We say, God, lead me, but we're holding the map. We say, your will be done, but we're rewriting the instructions. And when He closes a door, instead of walking away, we start picking the lock, trying to force our way back into places that no longer serve our healing, our growth, or our assignment. Let me tell you, if God has to keep removing the same thing from your life over and over, it's not because He didn't do it right the first time. It's because you keep reopening what He already shut. Every time you go back, you invite more delay, more pain, more confusion. And the enemy loves it, because he can't create your downfall, but he can distract you into walking right into it. You ever wonder why some things get harder the more you try to fix them? It's not always because they're complicated. It's often because they were meant to end. We keep trying to resurrect what God let die, trying to revive expired connections, but anything that's been touched by grace will never feel comfortable in chaos again. You'll never find peace in a place where God is no longer present. Stop glorifying the past. Stop looking back with rose-colored glasses and forgetting the nights you cried yourself to sleep. Stop romanticizing people who weren't praying for you, who were only present when they needed something, who clapped for you with closed hands. Memory is selective. Pain fades in recollection, and all you're left with is fragments of what once was. But don't confuse fragments with foundation. You can't build your future on pieces of the past. Sometimes God doesn't close a door because the place is evil. Sometimes it's just empty. It served its purpose. It was a lesson, not a lifestyle, a stepping stone, not a home, and when you stay in places you've outgrown, you start shrinking just to fit. You start compromising. You start dimming your light so others can feel comfortable in your presence. That's not peace. That's survival. And God didn't create you to survive. He created you to thrive. You've got to start being more loyal to your future than your past, more committed to your healing than your history. You can't keep betraying your progress for the sake of memories. God didn't bring you this far for you to be stuck in yesterday. The oil on your life isn't for going back, it's for going forward. People will try to guilt you into staying in places God has freed you from. They'll say you've changed, and they're right, you're supposed to. Growth looks like losing things that once kept you company but never added to your calling. Don't apologize for choosing peace. Don't explain why you walked away from chaos. Let them wonder. Let them talk. Let them speculate. You owe no one an explanation for prioritizing your purpose. And let me speak to that version of you that still feels guilty, the part of you that feels responsible for other people's feelings, the part that keeps you tied to cycles out of fear of being misunderstood. Listen to me. Your peace is not up for negotiation. Your assignment is not a democracy. Stop holding the door open for people who were never supposed to walk with you in the first place. You can love people from a distance. You can forgive them without fellowship. You can release them without resentment. Maturity is learning how to honor the role someone played in your life while still accepting that their season is over. Some of us need to stop asking God to change people and start asking Him to change us, our perspective, our boundaries, our expectations. Because the truth is, you can't fix someone who's comfortable being broken. You can't drag someone into healing when they've made peace with dysfunction, and the longer you keep trying, the more you'll bleed out emotionally. You weren't built to carry dead weight. You weren't created to constantly fight for a seat at a table where you're only tolerated. If the room doesn't recognize your value, maybe it's not the right room. If the door doesn't open with ease, maybe it's not your door. If peace isn't present, God probably isn't either. Let go. Let go of the desire to explain yourself. Let go of the urge to fix what was never your responsibility. Let go of the timeline you built in your mind. Let go of the guilt that keeps you connected to old wounds. Some of us are addicted to pain. We've gotten so used to struggle that peace feels foreign. Joy feels suspicious. But God is trying to shift you, not just your surroundings, but your spirit, your patterns, your identity. You're not who you used to be. Stop making decisions based on your old self, that fearful, insecure, anxious version of you. Let them rest. You're stepping into a version of you that doesn't beg for love, that doesn't tolerate toxicity, that doesn't need constant validation. You've been through too much to keep circling the same mountain. Your destiny requires you to walk away from anything that threatens your peace, even if it's familiar, even if it's been in your life for years, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard, because growth is painful, healing is messy, walking in purpose is uncomfortable, but all of it is worth it if it leads you to peace. And don't get it twisted. Peace doesn't mean perfection. It doesn't mean life won't get tough. It means that even in the storm, you know who you are, you know who's with you. You don't panic over closed doors because you trust the one who holds the keys. You ever notice how flowers don't force themselves to bloom in the winter? They rest, they wait, they trust the process, and when the time is right, they rise again. Stronger, brighter, fuller. That's how your peace works. It may look like nothing is happening. It may feel like isolation. But beneath the surface, God is preparing you, rooting you, aligning you, and when it's time, the doors that open won't need to be forced. They'll open because they were always meant for you. Closed doors are not your enemy. They're a part of your evolution. They separate the version of you that survived from the version of you that thrives. They filter out the noise so you can finally hear God's voice clearly. They teach you how to depend on Him when nothing makes sense. And in the silence, in the stillness, in the space where you once had noise, peace is born. So the next time you find yourself tempted to reopen what God closed, pause. Ask yourself, am I doing this out of faith or fear? Is this God's voice or my loneliness speaking? Because faith walks forward. Fear looks back. Faith releases. Fear clings. Faith says, God, I trust you. Fear says, but what if I never find better? Let me tell you something. You will. You absolutely will, because God is not just the God of closed doors. He's the God of better, of more, of exceedingly abundantly above all you could ask or think. But you've got to believe it. You've got to let go. You've got to stop peeking through old windows when He's already building you a new house. Peace is not the absence of trouble. It's the presence of God in the middle of it. It's knowing that even when things don't look how you imagined, He's still good. He's still faithful, and He's still working it out for your good. So close the door, lock it, seal it, burn the key if you have to, and walk forward, not because it's easy, but because you've decided that your peace, your purpose, and your promise are worth more than any temporary comfort. There comes a point where you have to make a decision. Do you want to be free, or do you want to be familiar? Because the two don't live in the same house. Familiar will rock you to sleep with comfort, keep you bound with memories, and convince you that progress is overrated. Familiar will dress up your past and try to make it look like your future. But freedom demands faith. Freedom requires sacrifice. Freedom means being willing to walk away from anything that costs you your peace, no matter how long you've held on to it. You see, some of us are not stuck because the devil is attacking us. We're stuck because we're holding on to something God already told us to release. He gave the instruction, we just haven't obeyed. He made it plain, we just haven't accepted it. And now we're asking Him for new direction while ignoring the last thing He told us to do. We want Him to bless what He's already called us to bury, but you can't resurrect something God Himself buried. You can't fix what He's already deemed finished. It takes courage to obey without clarity, to move on when there's no apology, to close a chapter without a proper ending. But that's what maturity in faith looks like. It's not about understanding everything. It's about trusting that God sees what you don't, that His no is a form of love, that His silence is not neglect but strategy. Sometimes He's quiet because He's testing your obedience, not feeding your emotions. There's a version of you waiting on the other side of this decision. A stronger version, a wiser version, a freer version, but you'll never meet that version if you keep circling back to what was. Every time you go back, You have to shrink. You have to compromise. You have to lower your standards, silence your spirit, and dim your light. That's not love, that's bondage, that's not peace, that's pretending, and you were never created to pretend. You were created to shine, to grow, to walk in the fullness of who God called you to be. Let them call you cold if you have to walk away. Let them say you switched up if that means you protected your peace. Let them misunderstand you. They don't have to understand the assignment. They don't need to approve of your healing. They don't need to agree with your boundaries. What God has spoken to your spirit doesn't need validation from anyone else's mouth. And here's what nobody tells you sometimes: choosing peace will feel lonely. You'll look around and see fewer people, less noise, more silence. But that's where clarity is born. That's where your soul catches its breath. That's where you stop surviving and start living. Don't confuse isolation with abandonment. God isn't punishing you. He's positioning you. He's removing the distractions so you can hear him again. He's silencing the noise so you can feel your heart again. That's what peace does. It reconnects you to yourself and to your source. It's easy to chase connection when you're not connected to God. Easy to chase affirmation when you're not rooted in identity. But when you know who you are, when you're confident in whose you are, you stop begging for crumbs from tables God never seated you at. You stop tolerating dysfunction just because you're afraid to be alone. You stop chasing people who were never assigned to your destiny, because, hear me, anyone who costs you your peace is too expensive. I don't care how long you've known them, what history you share, what promises were made. If the price of staying is the sacrifice of your soul, it's not worth it. And it never will be. You have to believe that peace is your birthright, that joy isn't a reward for perfection. It's a gift of alignment. That God didn't create you to be emotionally bankrupt, spiritually exhausted, mentally confused. He created you to walk in wholeness, and sometimes the road to wholeness requires you to walk alone for a season. To say goodbye to what's comfortable, to detach from what's draining you, to shut doors even when your heart wants to keep them open. You can love someone and still recognize they're not good for you. You can care and still create space. Don't let your compassion keep you in captivity. Don't let your empathy become your excuse. There's a line between grace and self-betrayal. Learn to love without losing yourself. You've been through too much. God didn't bring you through the fire for you to go back into the flames. He didn't heal you for you to return to what made you sick. You made it out for a reason. He parted the sea, broke the chains, silenced the storms, and now you want to go back. Why? Because it's easier than waiting. Because it's safer than the unknown. Growth isn't supposed to feel safe. Purpose isn't supposed to be comfortable. But peace, real peace, is worth it. There's a version of you that doesn't flinch at the past anymore. That doesn't answer calls from confusion. That doesn't engage in battles that no longer belong to you. That version is ready to emerge, but you've got to let go of who you were. You've got to stop giving CPR to relationships that only ever left you breathless. Stop being loyal to places that left you empty. Stop being addicted to old narratives that no longer fit your story. The door is closed for a reason. And it's time you honored that closure as protection, not punishment. If God wanted that door open, it would be. If he wanted you there, you'd still be there. If he wanted that connection to thrive, it would have, but it didn't. And that's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of his wisdom. He sees what you don't. He hears what they say when you're not around. He knows the weight of what you were carrying behind those smiles. So when he took it away, when he walked you out, when he stripped it from you, thank him. Even through your tears, even through your confusion, thank him, because what's ahead of you is greater, not just better looking, but better for your soul. And no, it might not come right away. There may be a season of stillness, of waiting, of wondering, but don't let the quiet fool you. God is always working in silence. He's preparing something for you and preparing you for something. And when the timing is right, you won't have to beg, force, or chase. What's meant for your peace will fit with ease. Sometimes, the greatest act of faith isn't starting something new. It's ending something old, walking away when it would be easier to stay, choosing peace when pain is more familiar, letting go when every part of you wants to hold on. That's faith, that's strength, that's growth, and growth looks good on you. So if the door has been shut, let it stay shut. If the chapter has ended, let it stay closed. If the connection has faded, let it stay gone. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. You're not being abandoned. You're being aligned. You're not being rejected. You're being redirected to something that will finally make sense, not just to your mind, but to your spirit. Because peace isn't just about a quiet life, it's about a whole soul. And anything, anyone, any environment that threatens that wholeness doesn't deserve access anymore. You don't need closure to move forward. You don't need permission to protect your heart. You don't need understanding to obey. All you need is the courage to trust that what God closes, He closes for a reason, and what He has ahead, it's worth every step away from what no longer fits. Let me know if you'd like to continue the message further or form this entire speech into a compelling spoken word performance, video script, or even a short ebook. So don't stand at a door God closed, weeping over what could have been. Don't knock on something He already said no to. Don't camp out in a chapter He's finished writing. Let it go. Let it stay closed. Let peace rise up and rule in your heart like it was always meant to. Because your future isn't back there. Your promise isn't behind you. It's in front of you, and the only way to get there is to walk forward, bold, unshaken, and at peace. God didn't close that door to hurt you. He closed it to help you, to free you, to protect you, and the sooner you trust His no, the sooner you'll see His yes, not just any yes, but the kind that brings real peace, the kind that doesn't shake when storms come, the kind that doesn't leave you second, guessing or chasing or doubting, the kind that feels like home. Keep walking, keep trusting, keep choosing peace, because everything God has for you is on the other side of that closed door. Now, let it stay closed, and move on